We're going to take a look at the components of the cognitive domain and its relationship to the previous four that you've been hearing about. Cognitive development focuses on children's ability to acquire, organize, predict, explain, and to use information in increasingly complex ways. Research indicates that strong cognitive skills positively affect educational outcomes. Remembering that all the domains are intertwined, it's easy to see how the cognitive domain provides the foundations for learning that occurs in school and in life. Let's look at some of the effects cognitive development has on the educational outcomes. The cognitive domain has three claims, and I will be addressing them one at a time. So let's take a look at our first claim. Take a little time to read this one. The previous scenarios that you listened to have addressed some varying examples of content-specific skills and processes in areas such as math, language, science, social studies, PE, and the arts. Also included in the cognitive domain are some abilities and strategies that are considered content independent. These are important for success in many tasks and include things like remembering information long enough to complete an activity, processing incoming information, multitasking, and categorizing. Think back to the scenario where the children were engaged in the science activity. The teacher might have observed different content-independent abilities. For example, one child may be able to remember the three-step directions long enough to complete the activity, while another child needed to have the information repeated several times, or may need to refer to the prompts that the teacher posted. The teacher knew that a few students needed assistance, so she was sure to put visuals up to help them be successful with this activity. Together, these content-specific skills and content-independent abilities further promote brain development, which we know undergoes rapid development beginning as early as prenatal and on into adulthood. Since research shows that formal schooling likely serves as a major basis for shaping critical aspects of brain growth, the nature of the classroom environment is of ultimate importance for the development of these skills. Also, these skills mutually reinforce processes that provide children with the foundation to learn how to learn. Let's move on into Claim 2, and I'll give you some time to read Claim 2. This claim is going to be talking about prior learning, constructing knowledge, and also that opportunity for students to demonstrate that understanding. Prior knowledge impacts all aspects of information processing. It's what is already known can be seen as having a positive impact on children's learning and academic performance, or under some conditions, prior knowledge can have a negative impact if the understanding includes inaccuracies or misunderstandings. Let's think about an example of how prior knowledge may include some inaccuracies. Again, think back to that science experiment that Darlene described. Imagine that one student using the thermometer insisted on turning that thermometer sideways. After the teacher asked the student several guided questions and prompts, she realized that the student's misunderstanding about how to hold the thermometer came from previously seeing his older brother use a ruler to measure things at home. And he was used to seeing the numbers running left to right. So the child wanted to turn the thermometer on its side in order to see those numbers going left to right, like on the ruler. The teacher in this case, because of her conversations, realized the cause of the misunderstanding, and she knew what she needed to do to help this student. Perfect demonstration of how the acquisition of knowledge is an active process, and the learner builds on what is already known, makes links between new information and prior understanding. Remember, this acquisition of knowledge process takes place not only during classroom instruction, but in those everyday experiences. Any inconsistencies and gaps in learning can be corrected. And as you noticed in this scenario, this awareness is guided by the skilled teacher who provides probes for understanding during that course of instruction. Now let's read the last of the cognitive domain claims. Looking at the attitudes, beliefs, and values that students begin to acquire for the academic engagement, we realize that students go way beyond the mastery of content. And they begin to view themselves as learners and to understand that their success in school, to a large part, comes from their own efforts. They begin to develop positive attitudes towards learning, and they also begin to appreciate becoming part of that community of learners. Both of these are so important for the present and future learning. The knowledge system that students construct during these early elementary school years represent the learning both in and out of school, and it becomes their academic self-concept, which reflects their understanding of their own strengths and their own weaknesses. Research indicates that students come to see their intelligence as either fixed or malleable. Let's examine how these two may surface in the classroom. This is an example of what a teacher may observe that shows the difference in how two students view themselves as learners. Think about the students that were talking during the previous described writing experience. The student writing about the Lego may say, "I'm not good at writing. I can't make these books." And the student writing about the soccer replies, "I don't like writing them either. I have to keep trying because Miss Smith says I'll get better if I work on it." Especially in these early elementary school years, teachers' verbal and nonverbal feedback serve as the children's data, and this is so important because it influences the child's attitude about their learning. The teacher clearly helped one student in the scenario above shift his belief about himself as a writer, and she can now assist the second student in making these same adjustments. This coming about because her listening to the comments. We want students to be persistent in their academic engagement, especially when they're confronting difficult challenges or if they're failing to meet a goal. So it's important to remember that students' academic engagement, that's when they're thinking about their own discovery and their own learning, is so vital for the growth of the personal attributes that support continued success in school and help lead to lifelong learning. Formative assessment during instruction gives teachers the opportunity to determine students' concepts of their own capacities, and it helps to foster the development of attributes that are necessary for their continued success in school.